to the hinyeve, to guira ishelumelo, is to gentilish negalie. My name is Anya Turl and I'm from, well, born in Galway, but my dad moved across the border to the Burren before we were born, so grew up in the Burren. And then my mum is from America, so I spent time over there as well. So where I'm from is quite a complicated question. We've come asunder and we're going under. We're going down to the down dark sea, going down, going down. We're going under, we're going down, enslaved or free. So when you come, there was always music going on, and we would always pick up Dad's instruments and Dad's stuff between us, all of us. And we'd all sing in car rides and we'd do all that stuff. But Dad grew up in Galway and very connected to the Galway music scene.
Well, I've been living in County Clare now longer, I think, than I ever lived in Galway. My nearest village is the village of Ballyvaughan, which is where, when I go out to play for amusement, or if some friends are visiting and I want to go over and find a place to play in, then it's to Greens and Ballyvaughan I go. And in fact, the session has been going on for 14 years now. It's a gorgeous song about the Burren as well, which is a magic place to live in. It'd be either itself or Connemara, it'd have to be mine.
He was, you know, the first musicians in some of the first sessions in the West End of Galway, which has now become this like amazingly artistic, creative place. And Dad was at the start of that. I started my first year of school in Carron, and then my mum and dad separated. So I suppose I would have been about 7 when we moved over to America with Mum, but we'd come back on the summers, back to Dad.
Sing a song for the whole world to hear. And nature, she just carries
And someone had left a 6-string guitar for Dad at that stage. When I was about 16 when I was home, and I said to him that I'd like to have it. And he was like, oh yeah, sure, you can have it. And that was my first time playing music, like my own music.
to me, declare. Ah, but is it the memory of the summer?
I moved into Galway pretty soon after that, actually, in a little flat, and was working before I went to university, and that's when I really started teaching myself how to play guitar. And then I got offered a spot in an arts degree in UCD. And so I did English and Spanish for my degree and Portuguese, actually, at UCD for 3 years. And I suppose I got exposed to the singer-songwriter scene in Dublin at that stage, because prior to that, I'd probably known mostly the traditional Irish music scene.
That it's so hard to find one rich man in 100 with a satisfied mind. One rich man in 100 with a satisfied mind. Money can't buy back.
When I went up to Dublin, I fell into the singer-songwriter scene just by sort of doing some open mics and got to know everyone up there playing music at that time. I mean, all this incredible singer-songwriter scene that wasn't really happening in the rest of the country at that stage. I mean, Dublin was really where that was happening. Shay Cotter, an incredible young singer-songwriter.
Wonder how many times I've heard someone say, if I had his money, I could do things my way. Thank you, Anya Tyrrell.
Yeah, here we are in rehearsals for Woodford, and yeah, I'm playing with some new musicians, so we decided to meet up before Woodford and do a bunch of cram sessions to get it all in. I had been speaking with Ben, who's Ben Goldstein, is playing percussion. He's a friend of a friend, and he got in touch with me about playing at Woodford, and instantly when I had a conversation with him on a phone, I was just like, you are my type of musician. Like, I just knew that the energy was right for that. And it's amazing. He's an incredible artist himself, and percussion and everything else. Yeah, so that was great. And Frankie, actually, I met in Ireland, would you believe? At Clonakilty Guitar Festival. She was over there playing with a New Zealand artist. I just loved her energy on stage, really, what it was. And I mean, exceptionally talented as well. And then she's a singer-songwriter as well. And so we stayed in touch after, and she was moving to Melbourne. And I thought about, keys. I haven't played with a keys player before, but keys can cover melody, and we've got 2 keyboards set up so she can cover the bass. So I thought that could be a really interesting thing to do. And like, the 3 of us had no idea whether it would work. It was a little bit of a risk on my part, because I've played with the same musicians for a really long time, so this was quite a risk, but I'm blown away by the trio vibe, which is exactly what I was like. It's surpassed any dreams and expectations I had of the sound, so it's pretty exciting.
Wait, why did you guys say?
Yes, I kissed a lot of frogs and I met a good one. I met Tom, I don't know, how long ago now? He's gone 2 years, 3 years ago. And I was very adamant that I wanted nothing in my life, but I was very focused on my kids and my music. But Tom just turned up like every day, just being wonderfully supportive and beautiful, and I couldn't ignore.
I'm a bit of a messy cook, but...
Tell us what's on the menu tonight.
So 2 pumpkins with made pumpkin soup, and then just some pizza with some spinach I raided from the school gardens today, and a few bits and pieces. So very simple but damn tasty.
So we've moved up here for 4 days before Woodford to rehearse. Then the kids can swim.
I'm just gonna cannonball. Go. Ready? 3, 2.
Mama can do her work. Win-win.
Oh wait.
But
it has a hand. No. Puzzle. Oh yeah.
Monsters. Yeah, the kids are coming to Woodford. They were with me at Woodford 3 years ago. And in general, they come to most festivals with me and tour with me quite a lot. As they've gotten a little bit older, they stay behind a lot more on my shorter trips, but we do a lot of family touring still. Well, last time we did Woodford, it was 40 degrees every single day. It hit into the 42s even. And Woodford is the most incredible festival, and they all have like terrible memories of Woodford because of the heat. So for them, they were like, oh, Woodford. But they've slowly come around to it now because all their friends think it's cool. There we go, that we're going to Woodford. So now they're like, we get to go to Woodford. I really wanted to pull the sound back down to a trio, something smaller, more manageable to tour, and just I find it quite exciting when fewer people can make as much noise as a band, you know, can fill all those spaces.
I have the last piece, guys.
The piece de resistance.
No, the top goes on.
Rise up, yeah, we rise up like shadows that fall. We rise up again, we rise up again like shadows that fall. And we rise up again.
Guys, should we do the bigger one?
Shadows that fall, we rise up again.
Frankie, this is my piano.
The toy piano. Yeah.
People that do these things for you.
She says that it's starting to shine and I think I'm back to stay. You can come and pick me up down here, but there's a word you gotta say. Well, I barely put that phone down when the keys are in my hand. And each little light that I pass by says right here's your promised land. And the lights a little crystal shine so brightly in the west. Saying, please come home, we miss you, we wish you all the best. Oh, we wish you all the best. And the lights a little crystal shine so brightly in the west. Saying, please come home, we miss you, we wish you all the best. Oh, we wish you all the best. And the lights of little Christmas shine so brightly in the west, saying, please come home, we miss you, we wish you all the best. Oh, we wish you all the best.
Oh, that was fabulous. Anya Tyrrell and Co. And the Lights of Little Christmas. I'll show you where we park.
Well, we got here a few hours ago, but the tents were in the car travelling behind us with Tom, but the rear diff of the car caught on fire. So we've been waiting for Tom to arrive. So there was police and fire engines, and it was all dramatic. So we've got the tents, and it's 10:30, and now we're trying to set them up by whatever light we have. What
We're good now, it should just stand up.
Woodford Festival is magic. As soon as you get here, it's like you enter a whole different world. So it's been nice walking back around Woodford, and the whole new world is here. And yeah, bumping into everyone. It's like all the musicians, all friends, people you don't get to see often. Oh yeah, we just thought we'd put in a quick rehearsal before the first show tonight, because we got Emily here finally. That was really lovely to have Emily, and now we got like 4-part harmony. It's not just 3. It's like legends. Yeah, sounds so good. I'm so excited about tonight.
My name is Emily Woodamara, and I'm from Bickerton Island and Groote Island in Northern Territory. Anya and I have known each other for a couple of years. She supported me in the opening of my single release for a song called Black Smoke, and ever since then we've just been crossing each other's paths. Anya asked me if I wanted to come and sing with her after we got back from Ireland. We went and had a couple shows together in Mullumbimby, and then I was like, I'm sure, I'm gonna do it. So here I am, on my holidays, singing for Anya. Connections we have, like that I noticed was, we're both colonised people, and the English has a lot to do with our history and our past, and I feel we have that connection, and the similarities is that we both just want for our mobs to be, how can I say it in a really nice way? Actually, I won't say that. Let's rewind and cut that out. The connections I think we have, like we're both, colonised people, and we're just fighting for our rights as sovereign people and sovereign people of the land, and looking after, I guess, what we want for our mob ourselves, and to keep our history archived.
No longer can we agree to disagree. If you claim any ounce of Irish ancestry, I'm calling on you, 30% of this so-called Australian population, to ignite the fire in you from past generation. You were shipped here through waves of famine and rebellion. Your DNA did not drown. You are the survivors of oppression.
I think she was still 17 or 18 when we met first, and I did a show with her. And the conversations, the similarities in stories, and that loss of language and that loss of culture that comes with colonisation is so similar. Our cultures are incredibly different, Indigenous culture and Irish culture, but at the same time there's so many things that are very similar, and that struggle and that survival to keep your culture and to keep your language and to keep practicing those songs and handing them down, and to keep talking about what happened, and to keep talking about that, and beginning to reframe how we are today based on the past, and how do we move forward to something beyond that, are really similar conversations.
And please do not tattoo that leprechaun on your skin or use our nation as an excuse for another drink. Those Irish jokes, you know the ones, they're not a badge of honour. They are systematic abuses attempt at humour. Your Irishness is not the green that you garnish on St. Patrick's Day. You've been sold that so your cellular memory may not resurface in this way. And please do not think that because from 3 generations back you come from Cork that I'm your Irish girl, and therefore I'll be what your Australian Irishism expects, and you do not get to call me your Irish sister. If your call also tries to inform me that all lives matter, and you certainly have no right to have our graw and your cree, if you do not recognize that the killing of black bodies is a disease kind of like the potato blight, I know you investigated that and learned that sometimes people take history and rewrite it and let their narrative reign supreme, and they teach it, and on it goes, and this we know, so now we know we're not allowed to deny that there always was and continues to be Indigenous genocide when your ancestors' famine was designed by the very same empire. The first gig was amazing because it was the first time we've all played together, and everything we had been working hard on in rehearsals and everything just like came together. So it wouldn't have mattered if there was like 5 people there or 500. We were just having so much fun playing together. Yeah, it was really special.
Will you stay up for another one?
Barry's tea. Bring it everywhere in the world with me. I can't drink Australian tea.
The best shop to go to is the Mexican shop, because you can get the tornado potatoes for $5, and they're the best in the whole entire festival. I know it because I've been around and I've checked the prices.
I feel like I'm living in 2 worlds here. You know, I feel like I'm never really Australian and I'm never really Irish when you're living between 2 countries, when you have a culture that isn't the culture in the country that you're living in. And I had that from a very early age growing up as well. In a way, we're away from our culture. I don't, with my kids, they don't have much space here in Australia to experience Irish culture. And, you know, all Indigenous people here have a way to connect to their culture. If they can connect back, it's powerful for them to be able to see that and be proud of their own culture and connecting with their own Indigenousness from Ireland.
I'm going to show you and teach you about the wannabe and how we live, you know.
Just wanted to ask you your name and where you're from and what's your people.
Ngayo Mala, Ngayo Burba, Ngiyabara. My name's Errol in English, Mala, and I come from a community, the biggest Aboriginal community in Queensland, Australia, a place called Yarrabah. It's just near the city of Cairns, a stone throw away from Cairns. You know, special. Ceremony is always special. It's for us. It's an opportunity for us to share an ancient, mythology on how, creation and how we live, mother and Lord, looking after each other and looking after the land. No connection with Ireland, but I tell you what, I got great admiration and respect for Irish people. In history, I'm not political, growing up in that way. So there's a lot of hardship, but the Irish people, the Irish nation, have stuck with Aboriginal people.
I mean, they've done Irish dancing here, and they all know some songs, and they know I've played in a lot of sessions, so they know the music, the traditional music, and my dad coming out and singing when he does, we're part of that, and I suppose they connect in with lots of Irish people whenever we're around anyone, and I try to teach them any little bits of language and history along the way.
Okay, these two ducks went on a date, right? And the waiter came along and said that'll be $200, and the duck said, put it on my bill.
When people ask you, are you Australian or are you Irish, what do you say?
People don't really ask that question. Nobody knows where Ireland is. So I have to say it's near England, and then everyone gets it.
That's really annoying.
Who doesn't know where Ireland is?
What do you think?
People don't ask me about Ireland. People just say, they were like, where are you from? And I was like, Ireland. And they were like,
so if I asked you,
like, it's
if
near
I
England.
asked you,
And they were like, ah.
do you think you're Irish or Australian, what would you say?
Pretty sad. I would say I was born into the Irish culture, but I'm still Australian. Nowhere near Australian, never will be. I love Australia. I like Australia, but it's not. But yes, I am biologically related to Ireland. The Australian life.
What about you, Colin?
I don't even know.
Irish music is so we've got reels and jigs and hornpipes and barn dances, and all of them are in different timing. So we can go for reels or jigs or hornpipes. Does anyone have or barn dances? Anyone have what they want to hear, or do you want me to choose? Cheers. All right, I'll go for a set of reels, and this is actually a set that I learned when I was quite young and starting off, and I still love playing. It's a silver spear, and then the maid behind the bar. Irish tune names have the best names. They're brilliant. Try those. One for you. One for you there. If you're getting that crinkly note, try to readjust those top three and get those solid, yeah? So keep those ones on.
Wow. Oh, nice.
Oh, it's a bit painless, mate. Just go rip the band-aid off. Do it.
I can't. Do it.
I'll help you.
Do it. Do it. No. Do it.
Okay, you can just do it.
Great.
Do it.
Thanks.
My name's Tom, and I live in Mullum now, but I was from inland New South Wales originally. I've been up in Mullum for 15 years or so.
I think that leg needs to come off at the side.
My role at Woodford is general Tom's Cafe, so I try and feed everyone and Band-Aids for kids, just general smooth flowing, maybe a shoulder up here and there, throw a bit of magnesium tablets around, water, helping load instruments, just generally just helping out, just being present to help out with whatever happens. It doesn't really have a scent.
He does.
How come Kiki's not awake yet?
Kiki had a sleepover.
Oh, no.
Come on, that doesn't hurt. It's just...
It actually does. Oh my god, that stings so much.
Aww. I have to read it when I'm not thinking about booking into a leg. I got wood from there.
This next song is off my new album. It's the first song I released off it, and it came after a conversation with a beautiful friend of mine, Dane Kennedy, about a welcome to country. And he described it in the most beautiful way when we asked, was it still relevant and important as a young Indigenous man? And he said it was like knocking on a door. You wouldn't just walk up to someone's house without knocking. And it related to me, and I felt it so personally because there wasn't a whole lot of knocking in Ireland either.
When you come to the skull at my cobble crossroads, are you gonna tip your hat? Are you gonna tip out your load? Are you gonna listen to the laws and the rhymes that the man has told? Are you gonna trade in stories that have been bought and sold? You can knock upon my door, but in between the knocks I hear so much more. In this house, the light's not always on. This land, the land of fire and So I guess if you make it all the way up to my gate, you're just gonna have to sit and wait. And if the land wind feels you true, the gate will open up for you.
Yeah, we've just done our second gig in Bob's Bar. Yeah, it wasn't midnight, so people were awake and they were really into it. It was a lot of fun. Yeah. Challenges. Well, we found hot water. First, the toilet blocks only had cold water, but someone told us about another one that had hot water. So that was exciting. Yeah. A cold shower is really nice when it's hot, but like when you go back now and you're like, after a gig, you want to feel clean. So we found the hot water. Yeah, the kids are loving it too. It's great. When I finished university in Dublin, I decided to be a bicycle courier instead of going into the real world. I would deliver parcels and letters by day, cycling around Dublin, and by night play music and gigs. And then I did a short stint in New York doing the same thing. But the winter was quite harsh on a bicycle in New York, so went back to Ireland, and then met the kids' dad and started a family quite young. I suppose I probably knew at that stage that it wasn't quite right, the relationship. I was becoming more isolated from my family, which happens in these types of situations. And my partner had been violent previous to that. But then I kind of lived in a naive hope, which you do when you're in when you're in domestic violence, you live in this naive hope that that's the last time and that it's going to change.
Enough confessions for the day, and excuses thrown away. You might have felt defeated. Did you hear a word I said? You might have stopped that thunder roaring inside your head, but with a bottle as a friend, you didn't need me in the end. Now don't come crying on what could have been.
Taylor is about a year old when he attacked me and her quite violently, and I had to get the police involved, and there were orders put on him, and he was removed from the house, and then at that stage I was pregnant with Kailani, my next. At that stage, I completely lost who I was. I wasn't playing music anymore. I was quite isolated from my friends and my family. So I really was starting again, but a letter came in through the post, and it was from him, and one apologising for everything and wanting to make a fresh start.
The catch, though, was that we were leaving Ireland and we were headed for Australia. So I gave up my job, I gave up my friends, I gave up my family. I gave up our house by literally handing the keys of our newlywed home to the bank, and I gave him a chance.
He said that he'd like to move out to Australia and try again somewhere where we could make a fresh start, and he could get better prospects of jobs and all that sort of stuff. But I felt in my heart that if I didn't give him the chance, that I would never be able to look at my kids and say that I did everything, because people can change, So I gave him a chance. But then, life hands you pressures, and life hands you things, and his anger and his rages at me, and then the kids started to come more and more. And I found out I was pregnant with Tullen at a stage where I knew I needed to find a way out of the relationship. And you're also, when you're in domestic violence, you're in this constant muddle. Like your brain is constantly in a grey area, because the voice of their manipulation and then their aggression, it's always in your head, and you begin to think it's you or it's the kids, or if I change this or if I change that. I felt like I was always laying the train tracks out to avoid the next eruption from him, and I didn't know. You begin to start to normalize that violent behavior, and you begin to start to think that it's you, and you begin to start to think that there's something that you're doing wrong. But then this whole mountain of information that the kids disclosed to me that I really was quite unaware of, because he was very good at saying, oh, well, that bruises from this or that's from that, and you would never, you'd never suspect the father of your own kids to be the perpetrator of the violence, and he would have these incredible stories as to how one of them had got injured or hurt when I wasn't around. And even when crimes were committed, so we had an AVO on, and he breached that AVO something like 76 times. Yeah, and it was about a 3-year court battle for all of it. But it was, yeah, at my darkest, one of those darkest moments where I was like, I've lost everything that I know, every dream you put into a relationship, you put into your family, you put into this, what you think the future is going to be. And at that stage, I did realize that he was never going to change. This was my life, and now I needed to change for my kids' sake.
There's a time when a big sister mightn't know the way the road may rise. The road it may rise.
I suppose I had to rewrite that narrative on the spot in my head, and it was, do I want to sit here and live in fear in my whole life, or do I want to start an incredible adventure with my 3 kids? And so the bus idea was born out of that, you know, a way to rewrite and start anew as the 4 of us, me and the 3 kids. When you're on the road, I mean, you meet something new every single day, and it was such a beautiful way for us to heal, because you do every day. You are faced with beauty, you're faced with adversity, you're faced with change and all that, and it brings you so close. We've been on the bus nearly 6 years now. I remember turning to a friend of mine and saying, I'm just going to buy a bus and I'm going to take off with the kids. And she was like, I know a fellow with a bus that's selling a bus. And she said it has solid oak, Tassie oak floors on it. And I was like, that's the bus I want.
Okay.
I thought with the bus we can travel as a family, and I can have them with me as part of my job. And I was teaching at a primary school down in Victoria at the time, and I remember after I bought the bus and I had the tough decision. I mean, the teachers at the school had held me through the biggest crisis of my life and held my family, and had been that school community, had been the family when I didn't have any. And I remember I called the principal up saying, I don't know if I can come back. And she just said, we've given you wings, now fly. And she just told me to take the bus and follow my dreams and take the kids with me, and it would be the most amazing adventure. I took the kids around the festival for the morning, so we had a nice day. We went to see a few acts and had all the kids. Emily's little girl was with us and just did a big kid walk around. Kids saw some music, and then we did a rehearsal at about 3:30 just to go through the set. I know, I should have been prepared, but we haven't stopped, have we? Sing that with us. Sing.
Of your body, but your spirit is yours to keep. They can make a hood to follow, but they'll always be a black sheep. Hey, on, hear us sing. Baby, fly, fly. Hey, on, hear us sing. Baby, fly, fly.
Wake up! Wake up! Fresh wine and solo, ladies and gentlemen. Trust nobody,
2020, the kids wanted to go around the festival and stay up till midnight. So they all went around, did their thing and checked in with me every hour. And then came up here at midnight because my little boy had fallen asleep here on the couches. And we had midnight here in the green room, but we could hear the countdown from the amphitheatre. And then bussed all the kids back down to camp, and I was going to come back up and catch up with everyone, and fell asleep putting the kids to bed.
No, it's not normal for me to stay up late because this was actually my first New Year's staying up for the countdown. It was so good, and it's just like they do it in the movies. Really excited, but usually we're not allowed to stay up that late because it makes us cranky.
So today is the big day to get to York Circus, and I really want to get to the lake because I haven't swam in the lake, which is ridiculous that we've been here this long in this heat. So that is the most important thing to do today, swim in the lake.
Hi, welcome to Lake Gula. Gula means koala, and this lake was named after the Jinnaburra elder, Uncle Noel, who's been the patron of this festival for many, many years. So it's named in his honour. And it's a natural system that relies on biological filtration. So this is actually a microcosm for the planet. So if we can look after this lake and love it, she'll love us and look after us too.
Yay. And we're starting the day off in beautiful Woodford with this. Yeah, with this Bachanani leaf. Woke up early this morning to come in and see, to come in and do the healing with the women from Arnhem Land. And I didn't really know what to expect, but it was just so beautiful. My skin feels, I don't know, it was a really special moment. They have these huge buckets of leaves and water. It only grows in tropic areas, this medicine leaf. And they just put it like a huge pile of the leaves and the water on your head and all over your body. They do your arms and your legs, and I don't know, it was really sort of hot, and it just kind of like balanced out everything. I just feel really grounded after it.
Feels slimy.
Taylor and Lily.
Yeah, so after travelling non-stop for about 4 years on the bus, so we were searching for some place to have a bit more privacy and have a bit more of a long-term setup. And it was when my eldest was about to start high school. I just knew she needed somewhere a bit more settled. So there's Busty Bertha, there's the cabana, there's the deck, and there's our outdoor kitchen, and there's our little caravan off to the side. The toilet and outdoor shower is in there. And then that's my little caravan tucked away in there. And then this is our deck here where we all hang out. You girls gonna do the bus tour together?
She can.
And Taylor's going to do a tour of her room.
My name is Taylor, and I'm in year 8. So this is my home. It's pretty interesting because it's got a lot of compartments and little sections to it. This is my little room here. The best thing about living in it is having all my stuff really close. It's like built on a trailer thingy, the back of a trailer, so it's got wheels and everything. Well, so me and Tom built most of what's inside here. So we built this coat hanger for me to hang all my stuff up. And so we got most of what's in here out of the tip shop. Like this, my bed's made out of a door. All this wood you see up here, that's all from the tip shop. And yeah, all this stuff and the desk. And so we've reused every piece that we had. So yeah. I'm not a big fan of critters in here. Critters are like spiders, cockroaches, bugs, and a lot of ants come in here because there's a lot of little holes in here, and so me and Tom have to patch them up. And one last feature I like about my cabana is this half door. And I love this half door because it reminds me of home, Ireland, because my granddad, Grumpy, he has a half door in his house, and it really reminds me of there. Bye.
Well, you just push it. Just like that. On the left side is my bed, and on the right side is my brother's. And we both have 2 bunk beds. The front part is Mum's bed, and
what happens when we drive with that bit?
it folds down into a steering wheel.
Yay!
Day by day. Oh, it's a long,
Muscles have gotten quite strong from turning a 9-ton bus with no power steering. So the only thing that was in here was the sink that was built in, and the drawers, and there was an oven, not this oven, a different oven that only burnt things. So that was the first thing that went. Oh, we've definitely done, I've done up to 20, 22 hours driving with small breaks. The kids can sleep. So there are times where I'm driving a day like today and you're 40 degrees out there and the sun is beating in on you, and I'm sitting over the engine. So the engine is right under my seat, and man, the heat is pumping off you. So there will be times where those midday hours, you just can't drive. So I'd wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and try to get the bulk of our driving in before midday, stop and swim with the kids somewhere, and then I'd drive, through the night.
That's very exciting.
Nice try.
Got it this hour. I don't even know what time it is, and we're a lot of k's away still. The road is pretty cut up.
And then when you're living on the road, you also are part of another sort of community of people that are travelling. Buying this bus has been a part of our family. I wouldn't change my path in life. Some people look back and wish they'd make different decisions. It has made me who I am today. That same spirit is in my music and is in what I bring on stage and is in my family, and it is just the fibre of who I am. Busty Bertha Bell is her full title. And she's part of the family. Yeah, it's a part of who we are, and it's a part of how we've grown, and it is definitely a part of my music and my troubadour lifestyle, I suppose you could call it.
It's kind of like equal parts scary and equal parts awesome. What is this place? We're slowly losing our mind out here in the desert. Hey, I'll go up there and help reverse in.
Yeah, so what's going on?
I'm sweating. This is fucking unreal magic. Free flow it here. Cameraman is a little bit afraid of being in here without me sage sticking as well, so just make sure that I'm doing the good job, Jesse.
There's a calm on restless shores. Why
came to the moor.
Life is good.
I said I'm there. You know, when you do a good take, I don't know, like something, it just comes out. It's done. It's gone.
So this morning it's well over 30 degrees and you've got the humidity up here as well. So the challenges of living here in this setup in that heat are that you can't really during the day be here. During the kind of those hot midday hours, you need to be at the beach. So well, nature, we are surrounded by farm areas here. It's so lovely to have the open space like that. But with that also comes snakes, a lot of spiders, mice, which I'm not fond of. I can actually deal with snakes and spiders, can't I? But I can't deal with mice. They ugh.
Posters. The best thing about having my mum is that it's fun.
You're taking up all the space.
They can, I can.
This morning we've gone to Poster Mullumbimby because it's the 3rd of January and I have a show coming up on the 11th and I haven't done much to advertise it yet because of Woodford. So I've been running these small shows in the local hairdresser called Bananti and we got the posters up finally for next Saturday. We've spent, as you know, 8 days up in the bush, so we need to get into the ocean. So 2 o'clock is high tide in Brunswick Heads, and we all love jumping off the bridge, high tide, Brunswick Heads. So that's the plan. Get to the river, jump in the ocean. That's what we need to do. We feel really privileged and honoured and excited. We've got our busking permits from the Byron Shire Council. Now we're going to go busk for the next week. Maybe it'll only take us a night
until we get enough money to get to New Orleans.
To New Orleans, yeah. So there we go. This is what you got to do.
This is sisters doing it for themselves.
Yeah. And I'd been near the bushfires in Wye River a few years ago, and I'd never experienced anything like it, and because I'm from Ireland, if you haven't guessed yet from the accent. And I learned a beautiful fact about a grass tree. It's this tree that only flowers after a fire and then the rain after the fire. And I just thought it was a beautiful metaphor for life, how we all have those really dark, fiery, hard times, but once the rain comes, we all get to flower in the end. So Emily and I got to tour together in Ireland in September. We laughed our way across the entire country. My favourite bit is that they renamed Emily while we were over there.
In Clare, they named her Emily McNamara. But when we went further south to Cork, they were like, she can't be McNamara, she has to be Emily O'Mara. But we had a lot of chances to sing this one together, and we'd love to sing it for you now. So this goes out to all of you. We've all got some loved one down there dealing with that, and to everyone fighting the fires. If I step outside, will I burn in the inferno? Will I freeze all of tomorrows? If I wager warmth away, will the regrowth ever look the same? Or will the forest be forever altered? I don't know how to pray, but I'm down on my knees. I don't know what to say. I am begging, come see me through. Hope will see me through. Hope will see me through. If I raise the white flag, am I putting myself in the fire line? Will I be the ash would I held dear? Only way around is to go straight through it. I can already feel the embers falling. I don't know how to pray, but I'm down on my knees. I don't know what to say. I am begging, come see me through. Hope will see me through. Hope will see me through. Oh, pillars rise to glory. Orange skies are warning, don't go that way. But I am gone, I am gone. Oh, with the heart of the grass tree, I survive, even thrive in the fire. And when the rain comes, I'll flower. When the rain comes, I'll flower. I don't know how to pray, but I'm down on my knees. I don't know what to say. I am begging, come see me through. Hope will see me through. Hope will see me through. Emily O'Mara.
Tom loves the kids. The kids adore him. He's put in a hard yards with them. But now, you know, it's lovely. It's beautiful, and not what I expected. As in, yeah, I was quite happy to be on my own and used to that. But when you learn to, I don't know, receive love and receive gratitude, it opens up like another part of your heart that I didn't know had been locked off for quite some time. Today was the last gig at the festival, and we went out in true form. We went out with a bang.
absolutely killed it. Took it too for it, it's so beautiful.
We can live within God's garden if we tender with our care. We can understand the meanings, the motives of the fair. Though we stumble through the darkness, trying far too much too soon, let's all stand up and be counted at the rising of the moon. At the rising of the moon, at the rising of the moon. It's a truth that guides us onwards at the rising of the moon. At the rising of the moon, at the rising of the moon. At the rising of the moon, at the rising of the moon. Stand up and be counted at the rising of the moon.